I'm 88 years old, and I've outlived most of the people who once filled my house with noise. At this age, you wake up each morning a little surprised you're still here. And you start taking inventory, not just of your money or your health, but of the things you carried too long. There are 9 things I should have sold before I retired. Some of them were objects, some weren't. All of them cost me more than I understood at the time. When I was younger, I thought retirement would be the long exhale. I'd finally sit down, finally enjoy what I'd built. I believed time would open up like a wide field in front of me. It didn't. It narrowed. The first thing I should have sold was the big house. We bought it in 1974. 4 bedrooms, a yard that needed mowing twice a week. I told my wife it was an investment in our future, a place for holidays, a place for grandchildren. I imagined a long table, loud dinners, cars filling the driveway. The kids grew up and left. The house stayed the same size. By the time I retired at 65, it was just the 2 of us walking through rooms we didn't enter. I kept telling her we'd downsize next year. The market would be better next year. I'd have more time next year. She used to stand at the kitchen sink and look out at the backyard. It's a lot to keep up with, she'd say. I'd nod, but I didn't call the realtor. After she passed at 72, the house felt like a museum of things we didn't finish. I was the only visitor. I finally sold it at 79, 7 years too late, 7 years of stairs that hurt my knees. 7 years of empty bedrooms echoing at night. The second thing I should have sold was the boat. I bought it at 58 when I was still working 12-hour days. A sleek thing, white with blue trim. I told myself it was for family weekends, freedom on the water. I used it maybe 6 times the first year. It sat in the driveway like a trophy, a symbol of a life I didn't actually live. Every spring I paid to have it cleaned and tuned. Every summer I promised we'd take it out more. But work always called. There was always a deadline, a client who needed me. By the time I retired, I didn't have the strength to handle it alone. My sons had their own lives. The boat became something I walked past on the way to the mailbox. I finally sold it at a loss. What I really lost were the Sundays I could have spent doing something simpler. Sitting on the porch with my wife, visiting my brother. I kept thinking the boat meant we were adventurous. We weren't. We were busy. The third thing wasn't an object. It was my need to be important at work. I worked in middle management for a manufacturing company. Nothing glamorous, but I was good at it. I rose slowly, earned respect. I liked being the one people came to with problems. When I hit my 40s, I started staying later, not because I had to, because it felt good to be needed. My daughter once asked me, "Dad, why do you always miss the school plays?" I told her I was building something for all of us. I believe that. But companies don't remember you long. 2 years after I retired, my replacement was promoted. My name disappeared from the office. The parking spot was painted over. The plays don't come back. I should have sold that idea, that my value lived at my desk. I carried it right into retirement. For the first year, I didn't know who I was without meetings and phone calls. I'd sit in the living room at 10 a.m. and feel useless. Turns out, I'd trained myself for 40 years to be useful to strangers and distant from the people at my own table. The fourth thing I should have sold was the storage unit. That one sounds small. It isn't. After the kids moved out, we put boxes into storage. "We'll sort it out later," I said. Old furniture, baby clothes, papers, tools I might need someday. Every month I paid that bill. Not much, just enough to ignore. After my wife died, I opened that unit for the first time in years. The smell hit me first, dust and cardboard. I found drawings my daughter made in 2nd grade, a broken lamp we meant to fix, tax records from 1988, I stood there in the dim light and realized I'd been paying to preserve things I didn't even remember. It wasn't the money, it was the postponement. I kept postponing decisions, kept postponing endings. I finally emptied it at 80, threw most of it away. I should have done it when I still had someone to sit with afterward and laugh about what we'd saved for no reason. The fifth thing I should have sold was my pride. That one took me longest to see. My son and I argued in his 30s. Something small at first. Politics, parenting styles. It hardened over time. I felt disrespected. He felt judged. There were Thanksgivings we didn't attend because neither of us would call first. I told myself, he knows I love him. I told myself he'd come around. Years passed quietly, not dramatic, just quiet. When I turned 82, I had a minor stroke, nothing catastrophic. But I spent 3 nights in the hospital. He came, Saturday by my bed, looked older than I remembered. We talked about the weather. I realized then how much space pride had taken up, how heavy it had been to carry. We're closer now, but there's a stiffness that never fully left. Time smooths some things, not all. I should have sold that pride when it was still small enough to fit in my hand. The 6th thing was the extra car. After retirement, I kept 2 cars, one for errands, one just in case. It felt responsible, prepared. Truth was, I liked the feeling of mobility, of independence. As my eyesight worsened, my daughter gently suggested I stop driving at night. I brushed her off, told her I was fine. One evening, I misjudged a turn. Nothing terrible happened, but it shook me. I finally sold the 2nd car at 84. I felt smaller handing over the keys, like a door was closing. But I also felt lighter. Fewer things to maintain, fewer reminders of what I used to be able to do. The 7th thing I should have sold was the illusion that retirement would fix my marriage. That's hard to admit. In our 50s, my wife and I drifted. Not because of betrayal, just because of habit. We became partners in logistics, bills, schedules, repairs. I thought when I retired we'd find each other again. Long breakfasts, walks, conversation. But closeness doesn't automatically return just because time appears. You have to practice it before you need it. We had good years in retirement. We truly did. But there were silences I didn't know how to fill. I wish I had sold the idea that love can be paused and resumed like a television show. It requires tending. I tended my career more carefully than I tended her. The 8th thing was my collection of someday. Someday we'll travel more. Someday I'll learn the piano. Someday I'll visit my old college friend in Arizona. I carried someday like it was guaranteed, like it was a savings account I could draw from later. My college friend died at 67. Heart attack. We hadn't seen each other in 20 years. I remember standing in the kitchen with the phone in my hand after I heard. I thought I was waiting for a better time. There isn't a better time. There's just the time you have energy and the time you don't. At 88, the body narrows your world. You measure outings by how far the parking lot is from the entrance. You think about bathrooms before you think about scenery. I should have sold someday in my 40s. Traded it for this Saturday. The 9th thing is the hardest. I should have sold the belief that there would always be more time with her. When my wife got sick, it was gradual. Fatigue, small complaints, tests, more tests, then the word cancer. Even then I believed in extension, in treatment plans, in statistics. We had 18 months. I spent the first 6 researching doctors, reading articles, managing details. I told myself I was being strong. What I should have done was sit beside her more often without a folder in my lap. Toward the end, she said to me one night, "You don't have to fix this." I didn't know what to do without fixing. After she was gone, the house felt impossibly quiet. I'd reach for her in bed out of habit. My hand would meet cold sheet. That's when the inventory started. I began to see how many things I'd held on to out of fear. Fear of shrinking. Fear of irrelevance. Fear of letting go. I thought selling things meant losing something. Sometimes it means making room. Now I live in a small apartment, 1 bedroom, a chair by the window. I watch the same tree through the... It can also be merciless. If I could speak to the man I was at 45, I wouldn't scold him. He was trying. He believed he was doing right by his family. I would just tell him this: don't wait so long to lighten the load. Sell the house when it starts to echo. Sell the boat if it's only teaching you about maintenance instead of joy. Sell the pride before it costs you a decade. Sell the idea that your worth lives in your job title. Sell someday. And when someone you love is standing at the sink looking out at the yard, go stand beside them. Even if there's nothing to say. At 88, you don't regret the things you couldn't afford. You regret the conversations you postponed. The apologies you rehearsed but never delivered. The afternoons you traded for meetings no one remembers. I'm not unhappy. That might surprise you. There is a strange gratitude that comes with surviving this long. I've seen grandchildren born. I've watched the world change in ways my father couldn't have imagined. But there's also a thin thread of sorrow that runs through everything. Not loud, just steady. When you reach the end, you realize life wasn't asking you to accumulate. It was asking you to notice. I noticed too late. If this meant something to you, then maybe that's enough. Maybe my inventory can spare you a few heavy boxes. I'll be 89 in the spring, if I make it. I don't buy big things anymore. I don't store much. I've learned that letting go early is a kind of kindness to your future self. And at this age, kindness is something you finally understand the value of.